Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and it's an absolute pleasure to be at Beef 2015. It has been hectic, but it's been extremely enjoyable. This afternoon, I want to just run through a couple of things, and that is what we've changed in MLA in the 11 months that I've been in MLA, and then give you some real insights into how we did that change and how I believe that change will set the industry up and MLA up within the industry to better deliver returns for the levy. I do also then want to spend quite a bit of time on high-level R&D projects and some of the marketing that MLA has done over the last decade, particularly in the global markets, given that 74% of what we produce now in the beef industry is destined for a global market. So I'll start with what we do know, and I have done close to, in the 11 months, close to 35 sessions in front of levy payers and covered around 3,000 levy payers across Australia, principally in central Queensland since I've been in the job in 11 months. And some of the stuff I will cover quickly is a lot of what I get questioned about MLA and the industry structure. So the beef levy's $5. That levy is collected by the Department of Agriculture. Within the Department of Agriculture's National Revenues Collection Service, they collect the levy and they distribute to MLA under a statutory funding agreement and under legislation. $3.66 of that is what we call the marketing levy. So that $3.66 in the marketing levy, if it's generated by grass-fed, it goes and must be only spent on grass-fed marketing. Okay, so beef grass-fed marketing. 92 cents of the $5 levy come into MLA as a research and development levy. And it can only, if it's been generated by the grass-fed industry, be spent on grass-fed R&D. When we spend that 92 cents, it gets matched by government. And that's where the matching comes in. Now, you can imagine in MLA, we must be very stringent about how we account for the money that comes in, obviously because it's not our money, and then we're matching it with government money, so there's an enormous back end to MLA to administer the levy. But I suppose if I had a whiteboard, I'd show you that of all the projects that MLA may do around marketing in the USA or an R&D project, we could have a numerous mix of all those levies. So you might have a lamb levy, combined with the beef levy, combined with the feedlot levy, etc. And that's fundamentally how we're funded. How does MLA make the decisions around marketing and R&D? We have an annual task force of the whole of industry. They give MLA guidance on what our marketing will be for the next 12 months or what our long-term strategy may be in marketing. That has your peak industry councils on it, has representatives from retail right through to as I said, the peak industry cattle council representatives on there. MLA's role within that process is to provide the data and the evidence and the marketing strategies for industry to approve. And the task force will meet globally and domestically twice a year. So these decisions are not made in isolation, and they're not made just by MLA. It's an industry decision, and it's the same with R&D. R&D, we obviously have an industry strategic plan, and those decisions around where the investments are made in R&D are to meet that industry strategic plan, but also annually we sit down with the peak industry councils and we give them the annual operating plan for MLA. I'm going to go through some of the changes that MLA has addressed around that process in a couple of minutes. So that's fundamentally, at a very high level, 101 around how MLA operates. So what have we done the last 11 months? In the last 11 months, since we've been in the job, the board's given management and myself pretty clear instructions around what they want to see changed within MLA. And given that the board's here, we've got a board meeting tomorrow, I'd say that we've achieved most of those targets, and I'll update the board tomorrow. But given they're here now, I'll cover 80% of them. The first pillar of 3 pillars that we implemented in the last 11 months within MLA was transparency. So we got the feedback. We listened to the feedback that was given to MLA around transparency. How can I see where the levy is spent? Now, if you look at the current MLA website, it is quite difficult to understand where the levy is spent. On there is this annual operating plan, but it's very complex and very detailed. So in June, the first phase of the new MLA website will be launched, and it will be as simplistic as going on there and pressing on a cow that looks like a grass-fed cow and understanding what the projects are. We will phase this in over a period of time. You'll see what the projects are, you'll see where the spend is, you'll see what the milestones are, and you'll see that what the final report is so that you can access it. And that's the first stage of transparency. The second stage of transparency, it comes into the second pillar around our consultation model. So we've redesigned how we're doing consultation across Australia. We've set up regional in the north here of Australia, Queensland, Northern Territory and the Kimberleys. We've had in place for some time the regional beef research councils, and there's 11 of those councils across the top end of Australia, who then the chairs get together and they go into NIBIC, and then NIBIC goes into NABRAC, and the process has been in place in Northern Australia. What we need to do is promote this process further so that levy payers know if you want to influence the research dollar and understand where the research dollar is, get involved locally. A lot of this process is already in place, particularly in the north. We've got to start from scratch in the south and the western part of and the west. What we're getting at is being able to say to levy payers that within a period of time, perhaps 2 years, the only R&D that we'll be doing will come through grassroots level research and regional committees, or meet industry strategic plan, which is handed down. But also in that consultation process, and to enhance transparency within MLA, we're getting the methodology of the research project checked from an outside panel that will review the research, review the methodology, and also make sure it's world's best practice, make sure it hasn't been done somewhere else in the world in the past, to try and get it right. Now, this is to address the criticism that came MLA's way, that we picked the research and we picked the research partners. The system and the platform that we're putting in place is that we are a service provider to R&D to levy payers. We write up the project as industry has discussed and given us instructions to do, and then we will tender out that project to make sure it is of the best value for industry. So that's transparency, consultation, and the third pillar was efficiency and effectiveness. So we've gone through the organisation and reviewed the business models. We redesigned every business model to be a collaborative organisation. I did find initially walking into the business that it was a little bit of a silo approach, perhaps because of this enormous accounting system that I spoke about at the beginning of this presentation, that it was driving how staff were working. So we did and have focused very much on being a lot more collaborative within our business, but also with our external providers. Understanding that obviously research and development dollars for the whole of industry are going to contract over the next couple of years. We've got to find more partners to do the research with and be a lot more collaborative, not only internally, but externally. The efficiency and effectiveness goes right down to the performance plans of every individual within the organisation. The board set mine and they've flowed right through the organisation. I'm not saying they weren't there in the past, but I suppose we brought a different light to how we want them see them used in MLA and executed in MLA to make sure that the staff are a lot more accountable. We match staff skills to their jobs. And in that process, we found some deficiencies of what people had done. A few people had said to me that getting out of MLA as an employee must have been terribly hard because once you're in, you never seem to get out. So we did those efficiency effectiveness. We reviewed the whole business from top to bottom, rewrote every job description, rewrote everyone's performance plan, and started to become a lot more effective. And one example I just want to use very quickly is one of our employees that sits out the front on reception under this empowerment to staff to find ways to save money, worked out that MLA's always had a lock bag down at the post office. If it became a PO box, we saved $18,000 a year. Little increments like that, and empowering the staff to say, find us the savings so that we can make sure that we are the most effective organisation we can be and deliver to our levy payers. So that was the internal and so that was the external. Internally, as I said, we did do the performance management. Now, around that efficient effectiveness, the other comment that we made externally was that we would chase 10% of operating costs or $6 million. and we're on target to do that. So that's operational costs. And we said that's because the drought's coming. Hopefully we thought it might be coming off by now, but there's obviously a lot of parts of Australia that is going into drought for the 4th year. Because it's going into the 4th year, and now that it has rained in the south, I do think that the massive slaughter and the massive turn-off in Australia will start to ease. But I must say, it's only started to ease in the last 10 days. This quarter, first quarter of this year, we slaughtered more cattle than we did last year, which was a record as well. So we've addressed the operating costs of the business as well. If I may now just touch into R&D, and you're going to see a lot of R&D presentations this afternoon, so I'll just operate at a very high level. The strategy and the clear strategy for MLA is bigger long-term projects, like centres of excellence. So it's taking a large proportion of the portfolio and dedicating it to bigger, longer-term projects. Around the question that I always get asked when I do these forums, has the levy delivered? What have I got out of research and development? And the one that MLA and the industry, particularly, the industry should be very proud of is Meat Standards Australia, an eating assurance system. I know it's not perfect, but if you look at what it delivered last year and last calendar year in returns at farm gate, the differential between grading in beef alone from grading MSA and not grading MSA was $213 million as a differential. There's breed plan, obviously, which is improving the genetic evaluation through the industry. We've had it tested by the Centre of International Economics, and since its inception, it's delivered across the beef industry $2.3 billion of returns. So it's been evaluated outside the organisation. For every $1 put into breed plans, the returns are 3.6 or $3.60. Legumes, particularly in the northern part of Australia, particularly Lacuna, and developing more research and development so Lacuna can be grown further north. The legumes program within MLA, even in more Mediterranean environments, has also been evaluated externally and is delivering $68 million annually in returns. In this area, particularly in the northern part of the strait, the pole gene that MLA develops. The pole gene around taking hair samples so that you can establish whether a bull is polled to meet some of the concerns that we get from consumers around horned cattle and processors. That pole gene is 98% accurate. Take a hair sample and understand whether that bull is a polled bull or not. Saltbush. There's new saltbush species that MLA was tasked with finding unproductive land, finding saltbush species that would make that land more productive. Blue sky R&D around taking a carcass, a beef carcass, a live animal, putting it through a crush, using Xbox cameras and coming up with a dead weight carcass. These are the sort of things that MLA is working on in the blue sky. And we just spoke about a tattoo that you might see in the future that will go on the nose of an animal to tell whether it's in lamb or in calf, whether it's feeling the effects of a 3-day sickness, whether it's in a feedlot pen and not responding to feed and so forth. Puts a new light on what we'll call a blue nose. But in that time, we've run the ruler, over the last 11 months, we've run the ruler over MLA and made sure that all the R&D that we're doing and all the projects that we're doing are adding value back to levy payers. In marketing, the global marketing, 2 years ago, and particularly in the last 12 months, MLA decided, as you may have heard a lot of commentary in the industry about one brand for Australian agriculture. Well, MLA and the red meat industry did that and has executed it in the global markets. So we do have one brand across all our markets, and it's True Aussie beef and lamb and goat. And obviously when it's branded beef, it's True Aussie beef. That's just a representation of a brand that has a branding story behind it around food safety, integrity of the product, and the fact that it brings a red meat meal, brings people together. And that's the branding story. We're rolling that out across Australia. So if you go to a supermarket in Japan and look at the red meat shelf, you'll see True Aussie banners around where the Australian product is. And in there you will see some branded Australian product and non-branded Australian product. And that marketing, I suppose, the greatest credit to MLA was that industry, the whole of agriculture industry, wants that logo to become the whole of agriculture's logo for produce that goes out of Australia so that global consumers can understand that that's an Australian product that came from Australia. You may or may not have seen Tareq here over the last couple of days. Tareq's our chef that's based in Dubai. Tareq only uses Australian produce, obviously, because he works for MLA, so he only uses Australian red meat. He was telling me this morning he now has a TV program and has had a TV program for some time. When he does a TV program, his audience that takes the signal is 500 million people. And then you convert that back, they can take the signal, but who actually turned that on? Last time he did it, he had an audience of 300 million people. And it'd be worth interviewing Tareq to understand what he's doing. He's writing his own book. He said he went to just about every country when he was in the Middle East, like the American Embassy and the New Zealand Embassy, and asked to do this concept. Well, thank God someone had the foresight in MLA to take him on, because he's just been an absolute success story. He's positioned beef as a premium luxury product in a high-value market. Our biggest challenge is to make sure he stays working for us, or can we afford him to work for us going forward in the future? But it's a challenge I'm up for. It's one of the better challenges we've got. But that's the type of positioning that we're doing globally around Australian beef. And I do get a little annoyed when people stand up and say the French do this, the New Zealanders do that, and the US do that. I'm telling you, in the 11 months that I've travelled through the MLA offices, the reputation of Australian beef is #1 in the world. You and your industry and your beef industry is the one everyone else is talking about, and that's what they want to be. And don't ever forget it. But don't be complacent about it. It's still got to position our beef as a luxury item, particularly as it gets more expensive globally. And what I've seen for what MLA has done, I've only been here 11 months, but for what MLA has done and the red meat industry has done in these global markets for near on 3 decades has put us as the #1 imported beef product. Japan, Korea, it is in China last year. There's no doubt that will change. And our biggest market is the USA. And that's a lot of product going in. It's not just trim. There's a lot of PCAS product going in there, grass-fed product, and it's a developing market. But the US is at, its inventory is at a low not seen since 1951. It won't last. The US will stop taking the volumes that they have been taking, but whilst they're taking it, they're taking Australian product first, because they understand what comes with taking Australian product. Domestically, you've hopefully seen the new domestic marketing campaign. We've been talking about it in the tent next door, and I think we've still got a few more questions on it, but at a very high level, you're better on beef. The red meat, the domestic market, I get all the time that consumption domestically in Australia of beef is declining. We're the 5th biggest consumers of beef in the world. We consume 28 kilos of beef on average as an individual. Every Western economy that eats that much beef has been told to balance their diet. And our challenge is to make sure that you balance your diet by only eating, by cutting your red meat consumption down to 6 nights a week. But the challenge there is that we have identified a very segmented marketplace in the domestic consumer of beef. We have the loyalists who buy beef all the time. They're the guys and girls who will go out, when particularly men, I will say, that have to go and cook a meal, they'll go to beef every time. The barbecue's got beef on it all the time. It's the next demographic, which is the household. And the definition of a household is not the traditional household. I can vouch for that. You know, well, that's 20 minutes, righto, I'm halfway. Righto, good luck. So it's a nutrition-based marketing campaign. It's about giving the household the absolute excuse to buy more beef. If we can get that sector of the marketplace to buy beef once more per year, that market's worth $33.6 million. And that is a platform that I've asked industry, that you're better on beef, on nutrition. It's about protein, zinc and iron, and making sure industry stays on that campaign. Everyone says, why isn't the beef campaign as good as the lamb campaign? It's a fair question to ask, and something that in 11 months the MLA board has told me to address, and the management team to get it right, get the beef grass-fed campaign right. and there has been some fallout from it within MLA. But I have to say, it is something that you should be proud of now. Take the stickers, take 100 stickers around You're Better on Beef, put them on other people's cars, and be proud of what you produce, because it is the best in the world. So in conclusion of where we're trying to take MLA in the next 12 months, I'll run through the things that we've done internally and externally, but particularly about where MLA's position is within industry. There is no doubt the Senate inquiry and the feedback that I've had has fundamentally changed MLA. We will be more transparent, we will be more consultative, and we'll always question the efficiency of the organisation. Okay, but for MLA, it's about being the absolute pinnacle of the red meat industry as the go-to people, an organisation that provides the consumer insights, the thought leadership, and the data and the evidence. The data and the evidence takes away the emotional decision and makes it an absolute objective decision of which industry can then base strategies on to move forward. And that's what we'll be doing over the next 12 months. But in conclusion, look, there is still large parts of Australia in drought, but this global red meat demand is there. It's been there for 2 years. We've had the largest sell-off of beef cattle ever in a calendar year last year. We slaughtered 9.4 million cattle. We live exported 1.25 live exported cattle out of the country. That's the largest sell-off. That's even larger than 1977. We beat it by about 200,000 head. If we didn't have those new markets, those 100 markets, it could have been a lot worse. The fundamental problem with the last 2 years has been that capacity to slaughter the cattle. And that's something that, with the efficiency within the sectors, we need to address. MLA is not going to die wondering. We're addressing and trying to find efficiencies not only in our business, but in the industry structures as well. So I'm happy to talk about that on one-on-one. As you can see, I probably could go for 2 hours, but I'll stop now and you can get into more detail. Thanks, George.